Hello, more from the SIT tasting, the Specialist Importer Trade tasting taking place here at Vinopolis, and with Lance Foyster, Master of Wine, who is the authority on Austrian wines. Lance, can you bring us up to speed on what's happening with the reduced Austrian vintage this year?
Yes, it's quite a small vintage, Ray. One of my producers said that they've only harvested 51% of what they harvested the year before, but I think that's a bit extreme. I think generally yields are 20, 25, 30% lower this year. Difficult weather during flowering, that was the start of it. Disease problems during the summer, Oidium, Peronospora, and then quite a humid autumn. So the vintage was very late, and a lot of producers had to be very careful, very vigilant over rot problems in the vineyard. So a very challenging vintage. I think the wines, some of the wines are very good, but acidity levels probably slightly higher than in 09, something like 08 perhaps. So I'm sure we'll have a good vintage. It's early days to assess the top wines, but the simple wines look very correct.
So do they obviously cut away a lot of that rot, so there's less stock, but at the cost of the winemaker rather than our cost?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, we're looking at some modest price increases, which I think are only to be expected with these really significant reductions.
Yeah.
But by and large, the increase in price is well under what it would have cost them in terms of productions. So their net revenue for the year will be squeezed for sure.
Yeah, no, that's and what about Austrian wines in the UK? How's it looking now in awareness and increase?
It's great. We've clocked up 12 years importing Austrian wines, and compared with when we started, where you needed a 500 or 600 bin wine list for them to find room for one Grunevalina.
Yeah.
Now we find Grunevalina crops up on gastropub blackboards and so on, as if not mainstream, at least a well-known grape variety. It's very well established in London. Outside of London, we've still got a lot of work to do, but Gruner is well known here. What we've noticed in the last 2 or 3 years is an increasing interest in the red wines. Yes, indigenous grape varieties, Blaufränkisch, St. Laurent, Zweigelt, lovely wines. They're not for the absolute beginner, but there's wonderful complexity to be found. And 09, which is the vintage that's just beginning to arrive from red wines, is a sensational vintage.
Is it? Okay.
Lovely vintage.
That's a tip. Well, thank you for this.
Thanks
very much, Lance. Cheers.
Good.